Okay, number 20 for Practice Provincial B. Kind of a big question because it has a big graph. Graph of amount of gasoline remaining versus distance driven. And the question actually asks us, what does the x-intercept represent in this situation? So we want to know what does the x-intercept in this situation. Right. Well, this graph shows the relationship between the amount of gasoline remaining in a 50-liter tank and the distance driven for a certain car. So the x-intercept, if we remember correctly, x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis, So here the line appears to cross the x-axis at 700. So x-intercept is x equals 700. Alright, and what does this actually mean? Well, at the x-intercept, one of the interesting things at the x-intercept is that the y value is equal to 0. So on our y-axis, the y-axis here appears to be volume of gas. So this means that we have 0 liters of gas at 700 kilometers. Okay? So if you want to think about it this way, we can drive, or a car can drive 700 kilometers before it runs out of gas. Okay? So that's what the x-intercept means in this case, is how much, or the total distance the car can travel before it runs out of gas. Now looking at our answers, let's go through them and see which one would actually match what we got from the analysis of the graph. Okay. A says that the x-intercept represents the fuel capacity of the gasoline tank. That's not correct. So A is not our correct answer. B, total distance traveled during a long trip. Well, I suppose it is a long trip, but it's not really what it means. It's not the total distance traveled during a long trip. It is a total distance, but not the total distance traveled for a long trip. So it's not B. And only because it's not the total distance based on time. C, total distance driven until the car is out of gas. Well, this matches perfectly with what we just talked about. If you've driven all your gas, or if you used up all your gas, you're at 700 kilometers. So this one would work out great. And for completion's sake, we'll do D also. Number of kilometers driven per liter of gasoline. Well, D is describing a rate, and a rate is really, so this is a rate, and remember, a rate is a slope, not an x or a y intercept. So the answer has to be C. And let's check just to make sure we are correct. Answer for number 20, answer is C. Now it's sort of, they'll probably ask a similar question like this. There are many ways to ask using the same graph. Perhaps if they ask what is the fuel, or what does the y-intercept represent, so the y-intercept would be here. The y-intercept would represent A, the fuel capacity of the gasoline tank. The slope of this graph, slope of the graph, well, remembering that slope is rise divided by run, would give us, rise would be a volume, or liters per kilometer. So the slope of this graph would actually give us the number of liters per kilometer driven. Okay. So sort of the reverse of D. Okay. So D is telling us kilometers per liter, but the slope of this graph is actually telling us liters per kilometer. Okay. So they might ask you a question like, what does the slope of this graph mean? Okay. Or they might ask, what is the wideness of this graph mean? But that's just kind of extra information, because in case you encounter a question like this and it asks for something different.